Alright, today I'm going to show you guys how to retrofit a plastic frame, plastic foundation brood frame into the hybrid version we've been using. Through trial and error and a lot of different beekeepers kind of chatting and figuring out what works, we've realized that a really good, successful way to do it is to cut a strip, a starter strip if you will, of the plastic foundation. And these are the brood frames, okay, not the honey sleepers. Honey sleepers are a different story. But cut a strip and then let them continue from the strip down to make their own natural wax. The bees really like to do their own thing, but this also gives them some support and some suggestion on where to start and encourages them to kind of build out your frame, not be wonky all throughout your hive. So I'll show you how I change these into that, and then also I have a version here which is a wedge top groove bottom frame. I have kind of a hodgepodge of different frames. When I first started out, this is what I started with, but just through trial and error and experience, I've kind of morphed the two together to this hybrid frame, if you will. This one, if you come in here and look, you can see is all gross. This is all wax moth damage here. This was from a dead out, or this frame didn't quite make it. When I reduced it down, the wax moths got to it. So it's really gross. I'll show you how to clean it out. We're gonna pry off this top wedge top bar here, and I'll show you how to do both versions. So, all right, let's get started with, I'll do this one first because these ones are quicker and easier. Now these plastic foundation things, they just pop right in and out. So you can see they pop out here. It's the same way you install them. You stick the top in and you pop it in. But for our purpose, we're actually gonna take this, we're gonna cut this down into two separate strips. The top and the bottom of this plastic foundation sheet is tapered, so this fits really well in here. I found that if you try to take the middle strip, sometimes it's harder to jam up in there, so we'll see how it goes. But for right now, I'm intending on taking like a 2-inch strip here and a 2-inch strip here, and I'm going to use those for 2 frames. So what I want to do is I want to make sure everything's cleaned off. This one was only in a hive for a little while, so it doesn't have much built up on it, but I'm just getting the wax that was on, any little wax bits that were on the edge of the frame. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect because the other side works better. It doesn't have to be perfect because, you know, they'll build the wax all around it and propylize it up and do their thing. So just make sure there's no chunks that are going to stop the groove or the taper from going up in the groove. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick this wedged part here up in there, and then staple through the top of it, so it basically secures it to the top of the frame. On the bottom here, this one looks really clean. There's not much in it, but make sure if you have frames like this that you stick these in the freezer for, I don't know, 3 to 7 days, you know, or a week is great, because these wax moths will get in here. They'll get any little crevice and crack. They'll start building stuff up here. This one is a great example of it. You can see how disgusting that is. And I use a really narrow flathead screwdriver, and I'll show you how disgusting this is. It's just all dead, not dead, I guess. It's all just eaten up wax and cocoons and webbing, and you can see how you would never think with this tucked in there that they'd have room to get in there, but there's enough room. And last thing you want to do is stick this frame in a hive with wax moths in it already. It's just so disgusting. So if you're going to give them a new frame, make sure you put the time and effort to clean it out well. And this is the best tool I've found for it. It's just a really super narrow, oh, there we go. Look, see? This one I had out of the freezer for a few days, and they've already gotten in there. That's a wax moth larva. So gross. And there's more in here. So what I'll do is I'll put this freezer back in, a frame in the freezer. That's so gross. Ugh. This is the unglamorous side of beekeeping. You procrastinate and leave your frames out in the garage for a week. This is what happens. They find them. That's why a freezer is probably a beekeeper's best friend. So I'll just go ahead and show you that. I guess that was a really good example of why you don't skip that step. So go ahead and get all this stuff out. This is all wax. Again, a combination of wax. Even in this little groove here, if you go in there, even in this tiny little groove, See how it goes through the other side? They will find space. They will put a cocoon in there, and they will have an egg or a larva that hatches. It's mind-blowing how efficient they are at tucking themselves in these hives. So if you have one that you suspect, honestly, any single frame I take off a hive now, I stick in the freezer. I don't even risk it. If it's drawn comb, I freeze it for up to a week and I keep it in the freezer if I can until I need to use it, because there's no point in risking wax moth damage. Ugh, gross, so gross. All right, I'll move on to this one later because this one looks like I have some more work to do on the cleanup side. But I have some, let me see here. I've got some ones that are clean and frozen. These ones will be less work, so we'll use these ones. But for the time being, get all this stuff out of the way here. It's not always, you know, flowing gold honey when it comes to beekeeping. A lot of it is hard work, sweat, and gross work with this. All right, so we're gonna move on to this. What I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna measure, I don't know, 2 inches maybe, 3 inches, doesn't have to be perfect. 2 inches, we'll go with 2 inches. I'm just gonna use my T-square, and I'm really not even measuring. I'm just going with what I think looks good. It's 90 degrees, so I know it's straight. I'm just gonna this is a wax pencil, just run a line so I know, in case, sometimes you'll score it and it'll do like one of these, and then so just gonna use this edge, score a strip, and then I'll snap it. I just have a really sharp, brand new X-Acto blade that I'm scoring this plastic foundation with. At this point, I can probably just break it. Snaps right in half. Super easy. Straight. If you have any like little jagged edges, you can use your X-Acto knife to, you know, kind of get them off. But that looks pretty good. So that's our first starter strip. Same thing on this side. If I wanted to be like exact, I could just do this. I'm not really a perfect measure or patience kind of person. I'm just gonna get it together and get it done. All right, you can see how I have the line just in case it moves. But same thing. Put it firmly down. Give it a couple scores. Obviously, the more you do it, the easier it'll be to snap. There we go. Just push it against the table, or floor, whatever you're using, and snap it. There you go. Now we have 2 starter strips. These are tapered in the top. This one I'll put off to the side, and I'll figure out if I can use that later. But for the time being, this is all I need. This will do 2 frames. So, now that I have my starter strip, just double check, make sure everything's cleaned out. You can see, oh my gosh, these worms are everywhere. You can see I have a little bit of stuff here. These frames were in the freezer, so they should be pretty good. These ones I just took out a few days ago. And I'll just make sure that I don't have any extra. This is fine. This wax I'll leave on the side because honestly it'll help kind of encourage them to be like, oh, okay, we put wax here. I'm not really concerned about the side parts because nothing can really hide in there. This, you know, things can hide in. So I just make sure I run my screwdriver, get in all of these nooks and crannies here. Should be good enough. Before I do this, I'll just go ahead and take off this propolis. You know, if I'm going to make a new frame, I might as well clean it off. All you do is just flip, double check there's nothing on the bottom. Alright, That's a pretty good looking frame if I've ever seen one. So now what I'll do is I'll just take my starter strip and I'll wedge it in here. And here's where you gotta make sure you don't staple your fingers. I try to make sure it is 90 degrees, or yeah, 90 degrees this way, so that when it's in the frame or in the box, it's not wonky and crooked like this, because they're not going to know what to do with that. That's going to be a nightmare for them. You want it to be going up and down, level up and down as much as possible, so that they can do a nice clean sheet of natural beeswax that way. And so to do that, you can use a level. You can kind of eyeball it, throw a staple in, and then kind of adjust as needed. That's what I usually end up doing. I kind of just eyeball it. And then what I have here is I have a pneumatic stapler. I'm using 3/4 inch long staples. It's the perfect length to be able to go through the top of the frame and make sure it hits the middle mark. So for instance, this is going to be going in this way, and I know that it's going to go past the middle mark there. It's just trial and error, but it's also short enough where it won't go all the way through the top of the frame, which is not great. So I'm going to eyeball this. If you have a little wax here, it is actually really helpful, because you can see where it originally was, and this is dead center of the frame. So it's really helpful if you have a little section, because you can kind of just stick that in and you have a lot better estimate. However, you do kind of want to try to center it, so that might not work out now that I'm thinking about that. So, but it'll give you an idea of where to go. Okay. Again, not the world's best tutorial, but it's just, this is how I do it. All right, we'll put a couple staples in. There we go. So that's one staple. It holds it in place. I can kind of get an idea of how level it is this way. That looks, honestly, right on the friggin' money. It's going straight up and down. That one looks perfect. So now I'll go on this side, and I'll put one on this end. Try to make sure it looks great. So I'll hold it, and I can kind of see where this line is. Another way to do it, you could run a line. You could run a center line up here just to kind of have a guide. But for the time being, I'm just gonna push this in towards the top and put another staple here. I guess I should have mentioned that. When you're pushing this, when you're trying to staple this into this, you should be pushing pressure upwards so that the top of this lip is tucked into the top of the groove. Because you don't want it to be, you want it to be as anchored in as possible. So I'm pushing upwards, and I'm also trying to keep it, level here. So I have to do it this way because the guide. And avoid thumbs. That's always a good tip. So there we go. You can see it looks really good. This one's a little bit off, so I'll just kind of give it a little nudge in the right direction. And it's pretty forgiving since it's flexible, and it's a little bit flexible because it's plastic. So if you see it's a little off, you can just bend it, and really, it's not the end of the world if you don't get it perfectly straight. That's why I'm not really being too particular with measuring. There you go. So that's 3 staples, and that is in there. I don't think I could pull that out if I wanted to. It's gone all the way through. I don't know if you can see in there, but it's gone all the way through to the top of the plastic frame. And what I'll do is I'll just flip it over, and I'll just do maybe a couple more here and here. I've got 3 here. I'll do maybe 2 here. There we go. Now that's a really sturdy starter strip that is stuck on the top of this frame. I've basically retrofitted or converted this full plastic frame into this. Now, the reason why I did this again is because now the bees will start building the wax here, and they'll continue down, and they'll have this whole area to do what they want. Maybe they wanted to build, drone frame for some reason. This gives them the opportunity to build what they want. This, we're telling them they need to do worker comb. They need to do exactly how we want to do it. This kind of suggests how we want it, but also gives them the opportunity to do their natural bee thing. So we love this way. It's worked out really good. Give it a shot. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, I think that's good for that one.